Hare Krishna. Welcome to all devotees in the congregation and also all the Naperville residents who is participating in Iskcon Naperville Sunday Feast. Welcome you all. Today we have our special guest, His Grace Savya Saci Prabhu, who is going to give a Sunday Feast talk. And actually, we are starting a Bhagavad Gita chapters every week, a summary of chapters, a series for 18 weeks. So today is the first week for Bhagavad Gita, starting with chapter 1, which is observing the armies. So Prabhu is going to speak on that one. Little introduction on Savya Saci Prabhu. He is practicing Bhakti Yoga for more than 8+ years. He is appreciates the authenticity of the process and the practitioners, which has inspired him to take up this Bhakti process. And he discovers very deep inspirations in the association of like-minded people. He works as a supply chain leader with a building products manufacturer. He lives with his wife and 3 kids in Lyle. On top of that, Savya Saci Prabhu is very conscious of the food cooked and prepared. He is a very big on vegan diet and a lot of other things. We can hear from him a lot of that information in another sessions, but he's big on that. He's also Chicago Marathon member. He did at least, if I'm not wrong, 2 marathons of Chicago marathons in last 5 years. So welcome, Prabhu. Prabhu, we want to hear from you about Bhagavad Gita chapter 1 summary, and please enlighten us. And after this, we can have a question answer sessions. Thank you, Prabhu.
Thank you, Panduranga Gopal Prabhu. Thank you very much. It's an honor to be here on starting the Bhagavad Gita chapter summaries. So today is the second Sunday of 2022. So wish everyone a very happy new year, and may Krishna continue to bless all the devotees and the well-wishers who are hearing this. So first I will start with some prayers, and then I will talk about the chapter 1 summary. Om Agyanya Timirandasya Gyananjanaya Shalakya Chakshur Unlimitam Yena Tasmai Shri Guruve Namah. Shri Chaitanya Manobhishtam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Smayam Rupa Kadamayam Dadaki Swa Padantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Yuta Padakamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavam Cha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raghunatvitam Tam Sajivam Sadvetam Sabdutam Prajana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padam Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakanvitam Cha. He Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dinobandho Jagatpate Gopisha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namaste Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrinda Vrishvre Vishwabhanu Sute Devi Pranamani Hari Priye Pancha Kalpataprasya Cha Kripa Sindhubhya Eva Cha Patitanam Pavanbhyo Vaishnavbhyo Namo Namah. Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Shri Gadadhara Shri Vasadi Gaura Bhaktavrinda. Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, everyone. I was born in ignorance, and my spiritual master opened my eyes with the torch of knowledge. I offer my respectful obeisances unto our spiritual master, the founder Acharya, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. So that was the meaning of the prayers. And before I start, I would like to invoke the blessings of all the senior Vaishnavas and in the Parampara. So I can say a few words on the chapter 1 summary of Bhagavad Gita. Yeah, it is a great pleasure to be doing this. And so first I will describe the summary of, what happened on the battlefield and how Sanjay was explaining that to Dhritarashtra. And we can divide this chapter 1 into four key happenings. So it starts with Sanjay observing the armies and explaining and what Duryodhana said and what Pandavas did. And then the second is the blowing of the conch shells, on both sides. And then the third is Krishna drawing the chariot in front of the battlefield as requested by Arjuna. And then the fourth is the dilemma of Arjuna. Those are the four categories, but a little bit detail. So Sanjay was provided with the divine vision by his guru Vyasadeva, and Dhritarashtra was curious now what's going on, and he actually named Kurukshetra as Dharamkshetra, as the place of worship and where the Dharma resides, and more importantly, Krishna was there as well. So wherever there is Dharma and its principle, Srila Prabhupada explains victory is assured ultimately. Then Duryodhana, so the first part is just Duryodhana Leela. So he goes to his guru Drona and talk about the expert military arrangement of the Pandus, especially done by one of the disciples of Drona, who was Drupta, the son of Drupta. So he carried out he basically called out the various strong personalities within the Pandavas camp. And he actually still had the habit of trying to make Dronacharya a little bit feel bad that he trained Drupta, and so he was able to arrange the army expertly on the side of the Pandavas. And then he went on to explain the strength of the Kauravas. And in particular, he describes the Kaurava strength as immeasurable, whereas the Pandava strength is limited by Bhima. And he was proud of that because Bhishma Deva, who had the boon to leave his body whenever he desired, so that way he could not be defeated in any war. So based on that, Duryodhana thought that the strength of the Kauravas is immeasurable because Bhishamadeva cannot be killed by any military means. And then the second part goes on where Bhishamadeva starts to kick off the war by blowing the conch shells. And then Kauravas also blew the conch shells along with drums, bugles, trumpets, and horns, and the whole atmosphere was lightened up. And then it was Pandavas' turns. And so it is described that the conch shells in the hands of the Pandavas were transcendental or divine. And they even have names. Krishna's conch shell was Pancha Ajanya, and Arjuna's conch shell was Devatata. And so when these transcendental conch shells were blown, it actually instilled a lot of fear in Kauravas camps, and it shattered the hearts of the Kauravas. And this happened, Srila Prabhupada explains, because Krishna was there on the Pandava side. And more importantly, Pandavas had taken shelter of Krishna. So in fact, the story goes back that Arjuna had chosen Krishna to be on his side, whereas both Duryodhana and Arjuna had the choice whether to select the mighty, invincible army of Krishna on one side, and the army will fight, and the other was Krishna himself, who will not pick up arms. So Arjuna was able to pick out Krishna, and so it is described that when the conch shells were blown, it instilled a lot of fear on the sides of Kauravas. And also the Dharma was on Pandava's side. And we'll talk about the principles of Dharma and how those principles were protecting in this case when the conch shells were blown. And so then the third part is, then as Arjuna is prepared to fight, he picks up his bow, and then he thought, wait a minute, let me one more time take an assessment of what's going on. So it is described there were two kinds of assessments he was trying to do. The first one was to just understand, how hateful or how adamant the Kauravas were, who were prepared to fight, and it was an unneeded war in Arjuna's perspective, and he just wanted to see one more time face to face what are these individuals trying to do, and have a very Bhishma war, very a large war, a fierce war, and have many lives at stake. And he just wanted to gauge what's going on. And then the other reason was he wanted to see, just assess the military strength and trying to see what he's going to get into. So he was trying to assess the military strength and the psyche and condition of the Kauravas. So he requested Krishna to draw the chariot between the two armies. And while doing so, he addresses Krishna as infallible, as in Krishna never fails to have in his affection for devotees or serve his devotees. And so then Krishna, without questioning Arjuna, that, hey, we have all, starting a war is all done and dusted, and now it's time to fight. Without questioning Arjuna, Krishna just dutifully takes a chariot between the two armies. And then the fourth part is that Arjuna then starts to get overwhelmed with grief, and he gave basically 4 reasons as not to fight. So the first was he was overwhelmed with compassion on the bodily platform, that he thought that if I kill Bhishma Dev, my grandsir, and my Guru Dronacharya, then if I kill their bodies, then they will be killed. So he overcame with compassion. And the reason he overcame with compassion was because he was genuinely overwhelmed. He was a good, kind-hearted person, and he was not a coward, but he just overcome with compassion. And then second, he questioned that even if he wins, what kind of happiness is going to gain by killing his own people? And there will be no one else to enjoy that kingdom, that even if he were to gain that kingdom, and most of them would have lost their life. So what happiness will come anyway? And then the third reason he gives is that sin will be incurred by killing the seniors, killing their own teachers, killing on their own relatives. So it is also sinful. And finally, he says that the family traditions will be vanquished, and unneeded, and women will be exploited in absence of men, and there will be unneeded progeny. And so the family traditions will go down. And then finally, Arjuna says that, okay, it's enough talking. And he actually displays his dilemma and with an action. And he basically puts down his mighty Gandiva and sit down, and he's overwhelmed with grief. So those are the 4 parts of chapter 1. And so as I was preparing about summarizing this chapter 1, and I was thinking, what am I supposed to learn? What are we supposed to learn from this chapter? Because every time we read the scriptures, whether it's Srimad Bhagavatam or Bhagavad Gita, the same person can get different realizations reading over and over again. And different people, of course, can get different realizations and different perspectives. So I essentially boiled the 5 learnings for me personally that I'm sharing with everyone's blessings here. And I will summarize that in the end. So the first is that Duryodhana, when he was surveying the armies of the Pandavas, he called out all the great personalities who were good in military strength. But at the same time, he completely forgot or could not see that actually the difference between defeat and victory is Shri Krishna. And so he didn't call out Krishna. He didn't see Krishna as a threat. And so it was basically because he was high on pride, high on certainty of his win, because of Bhishma Dev being on his side, high on greed, high on envy, and of course illusion. The mother of all illusion, he displayed that he couldn't see Krishna when Krishna was personally present. So he didn't see Krishna as a threat. And so he went on with his own perspective. And had he actually asked the Dronacharya or Bhishma Dev, hey, this is what I see all these mighty personalities. What do you see? Right then, the Dronacharya would have said, oh, what I see is Krishna is on their side. And why fight a war that we know we are going to lose? Let's go home. That's what Dronacharya would have said if Duryodhana had asked, or if he had gone to his seniors and asked that question, they would have definitely educated him once more. But he was, even the thought of, let me ask somebody else, did not come in his mind. So what we are supposed to learn from this is that in our daily lives also, we face a battle. We face battles, and battles will come. We must ask, okay, here's what I see. What do others see that I do not see? How do we gain additional perspective when we are faced with battles? How do we see opportunities and threats? And if we surrender to Krishna, if we talk to the people who are instruments in Krishna's Leela, we can see what are our biggest threats and biggest opportunities in the battle, in the daily battles we fight. And Duryodhana was a strong anti-dharma person. He never stood by the 4 principles of dharma, which is austerity, truthfulness, mercy, and cleanliness. Duryodhana never stood by them, whereas Pandavas were always standing by those principles. And because Duryodhana prioritized sense gratification over principles, and the Pandavas prioritized principles over sense gratification. So that brings up to the second learning, that Pandavas throughout their life, it's not just suddenly before the war they became holy or they became very dharma oriented. They throughout their lives, they lived a life of austerity, truthfulness, mercy, and cleanliness. And that following the dharma adds up over time. And so when Pandavas blew their conch shell, it shattered the hearts of Kauravas. When I read that shlok, I could see that happening. It made sense to me. I could see that happening right in front of me. That is as if sometimes when we see that there is a fight between virtue and vice, and we can see that vice has their heart shattered because they don't have that spiritual foundation, whereas people or the side who is on the side of the virtue, who is side of the dharma, they are fearless. And the reason they're fearless is that God and Krishna is on their side. And so the second learning is that if we protect these principles of dharma, then these principles will protect us in the time of the war. And so Kauravas lacked the spiritual foundation. Pandavas had the strong spiritual foundation. Even in the military, it is said that more we sweat in peace, less we will bleed in war. So similarly, more deeper and spiritual practice we do in when the times are good, when there is a fair weather, less fearful we will in times of distress. And distress is definitely going to come. to everyone of certain magnitude, certain type. And so that will come for sure. That's the nature of the material world. And the distress comes based on how we have interacted with the material nature in the past, as well as what lessons are we supposed to learn from that experience. So if we have a strong spiritual foundation that we have cultivated during the times of fair weather, that even during good times, we remember Krishna as if this is our last day on this earth, then our spiritual foundation will be strong. And when we are in the battle, then our hearts would not be shattered. We will be fearless because we are on the side of Dharma. Whereas if we are not, then certainly we are going to lack foundation, spiritual foundation, and we can fall down. And so that is the second learning, that if we remain on the side of the principles, then principles will protect us. And then the third learning is actually very overwhelming, and it is very deep, that which is the Krishna being the Supreme Personality of Godhead, but serving his devotee. Krishna is Bhakta Vatsala. So Krishna served his devotee Arjuna with great pleasure, and he followed his directions wherever Arjuna needed to go. He followed obediently. So if we look at our own lives as well, we are meant to serve. We can see all the times, if we want, we can create a log of our activities, daily activities. So then we can see 100% of the time we are serving something or the other. It could be our parents, it could be our siblings, it could be our children, it could be our friends, it could be our bosses at works, colleagues at works, it could be our customers or stakeholders if we are in business. And if we are not serving any of these, then we are serving our senses or false ego. Then we are doing some of that service. So all of our activities can be categorized as one of service. And if we take a daily log of activities, we'll find 100% of the time we are serving some of the things or some of the people we have described above. So the issue with this service is that if Krishna is not in the center, then this service is going to bind us in tight ropes and have reactions, even if they are good. The issue is that we'll have to come back to this material life to discharge the actions that come out. And every time we have to take birth and leave our body, and all of those things are temporary. So all these service is temporary. So when we're serving all the time, then the big question is, why not serve Krishna? Why not keep Krishna in the center and discharge our duties in Krishna consciousness? And we can discharge our material duties in Krishna consciousness by remembering Krishna, by having mantra meditation, as well as following the four principles of Dharma that I described, which is austerity, truthfulness, mercy, and cleanliness. These are our guiding principles. These are our guideposts that we can discharge our worldly duties in Krishna consciousness. And anytime we are faced with any decision, these principles can guide us, can be our guidepost. So the benefit of serving Krishna is that we don't have to take birth again and again in the temporary world if we serve Krishna. And serving to Krishna is permanent, as opposed to when we serve our senses or our other temporary relationships, which we should serve. I'm not saying we should not serve them. Krishna has placed us in that situation, so we should definitely serve them. But in this case, it's permanent and it is additive. It does not, every time we serve Krishna, it adds up and it's never forgotten. It goes with us, it remains with us. It's not that we lose it once we leave our body, it goes with us. So would we want to serve Krishna, serve somebody who's additive and whose results are permanent and And when we serve that personality, not only those results are permanent and additive, but we serve everyone else. Just like Srila Prabhupada has given many a times the analogy of when we water the root of the tree, then all the branches and leaves are served and satisfied. So that is a third learning, is that while we are serving, why not serve Krishna and keeping Krishna in the center? And the fourth is when Arjuna asked, okay, let me please put this chariot in front of the armies. So Krishna dutifully draws the chariot in front of the grandsire. He didn't put Arjuna face to face with Duryodhana. Instead, Krishna put Arjuna face to face with his grandsire and his guru and teacher, Dronacharya. Now, by doing so, Krishna was not being mischievous, although Krishna has shown in his pastimes that, especially the childhood pastimes, that he is an extremely mischievous person. In mischief, also, nobody can exceed Krishna. But in this particular case, Krishna was not trying to be mischievous. Krishna wanted Arjuna to face the uncomfortable truths that he had to face either at the start of the war or later in the war. Now, had Krishna put Arjuna in front of Duryodhana, Arjuna might have gotten agitated and started the war right then and there. And then down the road, he might come face to face with Dronacharya or Bhishma Dev, and then he might lose his motivation coming face to face and with his elders. So he might have lost, had Krishna reversed the order. So the learning is sometimes, or most of the times, Krishna puts us in these situations and makes us face the truths that we don't want to face, or it can be uncomfortable. It can look very adverse, and we might be put in a situation where we are asking Krishna, why did you put me in this situation? So rather than having that consciousness, the learning is our consciousness should be, Krishna, I've been placed in this position. I can turn to you as a super soul in my heart. You can guide me what I'm supposed to do in this situation. What I'm supposed to learn after I do what I'm supposed to do in this situation. Because this whole material universe is a kind of a university where every time we are alive, different situations come at us. They're supposed to educate us. They're supposed to be minor exams to go from one grade to another grade. So if we are in 5th grade, the good news is we won't be given a question paper of the 10th grade. We'll be given a question paper of the 5th grade based on our capabilities and what we have learned in the past. And because Krishna is always in our heart, we can turn to Krishna for guidance. We can turn to Krishna's devotees and instruments. They can even be non-devotees who can be Krishna's instruments, and Krishna can guide us in those difficult situations. So and also the news is that if we are in 5th grade, then we won't be given the question paper of the kindergarten. So whatever situation we are put in, and I will exclude some permanent losses that we sometimes come across by losing our loved near and dear ones, and that's different. I'm talking about the most difficult situations that we are put in, where the answer is not very obvious. Then we should know that these tests that have been given to us, these situations that we are put in, we are very capable of overcoming these situations if we just turn to Krishna. So we are more capable. So the lesson is we are more capable than we think. But the condition is only if we turn to Krishna. If we don't turn to Krishna, then we will not. Then we may just be lost in trying to us taking the control of everything and knowing that we are not the controller. And then the 5th lesson is that there was in the times of wars, we get faced with the dilemma. There are different dilemmas and ethical issues that come about. In this particular case, Arjuna was kind-hearted, so it was definitely not his weakness. So he was having compassion at bodily platform. He questioned how will he enjoy if he won. Then he said, okay, it's going to be a sinful reaction, and finally the family traditions will vanquish. So let's unpack each of these dilemmas that Arjuna had, which we may also face on a regular basis. So Arjuna thought that if I kill their bodies, I will kill them. And the fact of the matter is that Kaurava's time had come. They had stopped learning and growing. And we can see that evidence that Krishna himself went as a peace messenger and asked for 5 villages, but then Kauravas were still hell-bent on the war. So they had stopped growing, and had they stayed in power, they would have caused more degradation of the society. So from the eyes of the Shastras, that's what Krishna says, that the true compassion is a compassion of the soul, that if somebody is doing sinful activities that require them to be killed, then they're going to be elevated to a higher platform in their next life, and they will be absolved of the duties. So, and we see that sometimes, and the example we can see is that in the hospital setting, if one of our limb become poisonous, to save our body, that limb has to be taken out. And some of the practical experiences that we can see that sometimes we try to give extra comfort to our near and dear ones, and we think, oh, what will happen to our children? And sometimes we avoid the problem, not dealing with the problem head on. And other part of the bodily compassion can be we sometimes we think twice about austerities or fasting or serving or meditation or even helping others do the same, thinking that their bodily platform, thinking at the bodily platform. But we really take the help of Shastras, we can clearly see that what is truly important is compassion at the soul level. And that's what Krishna enlightens Arjuna as well, that even if the bodies are killed, the soul will still be there. And then the second is the dilemma is about enjoyment. How will I enjoy even if I am able to survive this battle? And so the material enjoyments are temporary. Real enjoyment is spiritually. Srila Prabhupada has given us a lot of examples how the material enjoyment is temporary, and it leads to it can be a temporary enjoyment, but it definitely down the road leads to suffering. The real enjoyment is in spirituality. The ABCDE is being given. A for association, and like Panduranga Gopal Prabhu said in the beginning, I was attracted to Krishna consciousness because of the association and authenticity of the devotees. B is Srimad Bhagavatam, reading the scriptures. C is chanting or mantra meditation. And D is deity service. And E is execution to some kind of service. So if we perform these activities at a spiritual platform, we can see it's real enjoyment. We will never get bored with that kind of enjoyment. And the example given is why it is real enjoyment is if we invite a guest to our home and we just iron their shirt and give them a nice shirt, but don't feed them, they will not feel fully satisfied. So similarly, when we do the bodily enjoyment, we are just looking at the superficial temporary thing as opposed to feeding the soul. Only when the soul is fed with the A, B, C, D, E I just described, then we can get a more everlasting enjoyment. And then third dilemma of Arjuna was the sinful reactions. And sometimes before coming to Krishna consciousness, we can see, or even after coming to Krishna consciousness, we can see that, okay, if we worship other demigods, what will happen? I'll incur some sinful reactions. What if I don't offer do my offerings to the ancestors? Then I will incur I will incur sinful reactions. And Srila Prabhupada has explained that if we do the mantra meditation and call out Sri Krishna, then even our ancestors, the offerings to ancestors have occurred. And finally, the family traditions. As we take up Krishna consciousness, before that we might be doing so many endeavors together to preserve the family lineage, and of course, family in this life is temporary, and the traditions can change with time, place, and circumstance. And we may, in Krishna consciousness, we may do things that are different from the family traditions we may have. Some people have different traditions. In Diwali, they may drink together or gamble together. That may be a family tradition, and people can get attached to those family traditions. What if I take up Krishna consciousness? What will happen to those family traditions? So there are these are just 4 examples that Arjuna had, and our minds can have different battles with different circumstances, with so many what ifs, different dilemmas if I take on Krishna consciousness. And for what we can see, devotees who have advanced in Krishna consciousness, and we see their life, we can see that those devotees won't have it any other way. They won't go back. And in fact, as we make progress spiritually, we can see and look back. Even ourselves, we won't have it any other way. We can look back. I look back the kind of life I used to live, and it is amazing that we would not go back living or even think of living that kind of life that I was living. So the point is that as we make progress, having that faith that ultimately it will lead us to the right path and will lead us to everlasting happiness, is how we can make a progress in Krishna consciousness. So I will summarize these points, and I will try to share a PowerPoint I prepared. So those are the takeaways we can do from the chapter 1. Okay, so for our day-to-day life, we can see when we are in situations that we are not forgetting to seek the perspective of others. And it's not just what we see, but also stepping back and having the humility to ask others around us, who could be instruments of Krishna, what do others see that I do not see? How do we humbly gain additional perspective from others? So that is the first takeaway. Second is that more spiritual practice we do in happiness, or when there is a lack of distress, less fearful we will be in distress, and distresses will come. And in fact, if we are fully surrendered to Krishna, then the fear factor is 0. Essentially, the fear is inversely proportional to how much our surrender to Krishna is. And if we are fully surrendered, then there is no question of fear, because we can do our best. We can leave the results to Krishna, and as long as we are on the side of Dharma, and so in this spiritual practice in happiness also means following the 4 principles of Dharma, which again are austerity, truthfulness, cleanliness, and mercy. Third is we're serving all the time. So why not serve Krishna? Why not serve the Supreme Personality. And when we serve Krishna, it is permanent, it is everlasting, and then everybody else is also satisfied who's connected, and because everybody else is connected to Krishna as well. The fourth is we might be thrown challenges, and Krishna might make us face truths that we don't want to face or feel uncomfortable facing. Only if we turn to Krishna, we are more capable than we think we are. But if we turn to Krishna, and we will have difficult challenges and adversities which won't have an obvious solution. And because the question paper we are given is only the one we are capable to handle, Krishna doesn't give us higher grade question papers, and life is a lifelong learning and university. So we should be assured that these challenges are within our capacity and capability. All we need to do is turn to Krishna, and the answers will come. And not only answers will come, at the end of it, we will learn something that we were meant to learn in this lifetime. And then we can take that as with utmost gratitude that we were able to learn that lesson in this lifetime, as opposed to, I will talk about myself, as opposed to, if I don't learn this life, then I may have to take birth again to learn those lessons I'm failing to learn in this life. And finally, beware of the obstacles in surrendering to Krishna and overcome them by reading scriptures, by having the right association. The mind will throw different kind of obstacles, and it is in the mind, but having that faith that these obstacles are either temporarily mind connotations, or these obstacles are meant to test our faith. And if we continue with our faith, then we can overcome these obstacles. We can have a more permanent, additive spiritual life that goes with us in the next life. So those were the 5 lessons that I thought I'll share. And I'll definitely welcome the opportunity to have a discussion, questions and answers, because those questions and answers, I will learn a lot myself. So I'll pause here if anyone has anything to add.
Thank you, Prabhu, for your wonderful class. Devotees will open up for question and answers or comments, as Prabhu said. Any discussion points? Please unmute yourself so we can hear.
Hare Krishna Prabhuji, please accept my humble obeisances. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. I just thought your lecture was very beautiful, and I love these takeaway points. I will definitely keep them in mind whenever things like this happen, especially understanding that, you know, when we turn to Krishna, everything is possible. And he only gives us, you know, issues or problems that we can handle. It's not something that he you know, he just gives us something that we cannot handle. And also, you know, we should always be serving Krishna. Since we're serving everything in some way or another, then why not serve Krishna, which is permanent, who's permanent. Obviously, you know, the more spiritual practices that we do when we're in happiness, as you have number 2 here, definitely it helps us in the times of distresses, instead of just having the strong, you know, service or spiritual practice during distresses. So I just thought everything, you know, all these takeaway points were really, really highlight of everything that you said, and great summary for chapter 1 of Bhagavad Gita. Thank you so much, Prabhuji. Hare Krishna.
Prabhu, you have to unmute.
Hare Krishna, Prabhu. This is Saci Das. Please accept my humble obeisances. All Guru Srila Prabhupada. Prabhu, very nice class, and this is a greater anatomy of chapter 1. You have covered extensively, and I like the point where you said if Duryodhana would have asked Dronacharya about the opportunities and threats, the SWOT analysis, in understanding the strength, weakness, and opportunities and threats, this would have become a much bigger it would have taken in a different picture itself, the whole Bhagavad Gita and the whole Mahabharata itself. It's most of the times like I practically fail to do that analysis. We think for sure that, oh, this is something that I know my strength and stuff, but the reality is that it's always an opportunity to ask the superiors, and to take guidance. Thank you very much, Prabhu. Hare Krishna.
Thank you. Thank you, Prabhuji, Sachi Das and Mataji. Thank you for sharing your reflections. Okay, if there is nothing else, we can close the Sunday feast discussion.
Yeah, one minute, Prabhu. Let me check on online.
Sure.
If anybody is putting any questions there. Generally, it will be slow when it is online. People forget to unmute, and so just give us a few minutes, Prabhuji, if you don't mind. Okay, I don't see any questions on YouTube. Mataji's, Prabhu's, any other comments, questions on Zoom call?
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji.
Hare Krishna.
Prabhuji, so the first question is, what do others see that I do not see? And how do we gain that additional perspective? So when I'm facing the problem, the second question, so how do I see that additional perspective means, how do I do that, Prabhuji? That's the question I have. Can you please elaborate on that, please, Prabhuji?
Yes, sure. So my thought there was that when we are in a difficult situation or a battle that doesn't have an obvious answer, then sharing the heart in confidence with those that are around us, who can see, they may be directly involved or not even directly involved in the situation, and asking them humbly, if you're able to confidently share our heart that this is a situation, this is what I see so far, but I have a limited perspective, and gain their perspective, because they also have different life experiences, and they may have come across same or similar situations before, and they may give a perspective that we may have missed, because we are limited in our experiences. All of us individually are limited in our experiences. Collectively, we have much more experience in our network. So having an understanding with whom we can share our heart, and who can provide an additional point of view. I don't know if that was your question, Mataji, or
Yeah, Prabhuji. Yes, you answered my question. Thank you.
Yeah.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji. This is Megha again. Please accept my humble obeisances. So in addition to that question, I just have a continuation question, I think. I just thought about it, so I wanted to ask. So let's say if someone is coming and then, letting you know the issue that they're going through or feeling, and you give them the perspective, another perspective, but then they don't want to really hear the perspective. They're wanting to more of like, attestation that they're correct. How do we go about from the receiving end? How do we go about handling that situation? Do we, I mean, obviously they're coming to you, but they're not really asking you, but you want to help them see this different perspective. And then they think that we are not supporting them in that way. And yet we're trying to help them gain the different perspective so that, it's always, there's two sides of a coin. So you always want to help someone, not, put fuel to the fire, right? You want to try to subdue the fire by helping them just stop that bad emotion, negative emotion there. But they don't want to do that. How do we handle that?
Okay. So thank you, Megha Mataji. So the question, if I just paraphrase in my own words, is if somebody comes to us and they are only looking, they share something, but they're looking to confirm what they think.
Yes.
They come for confirming their confirmation rather than confirming, they have a confirmation bias. And they are not interested in a different perspective from us. Then how do we help them?
Yeah.
Is that the question?
Yes, correct.
Yeah. So that's a great question. I know that happens some of the times. And so what I would recommend there is that we hear them and first try to understand where they are. Because you're right, they may not be ready to hear that perspective. So just if they're looking for confirmation of what they think they already know, then asking different questions, not in a challenging way, but in a different point of view way, that why they think what they think. Trying to just understand them and meet them where they are, rather than quickly drag them to our perspective. So just meeting them and create that space where they can speak their heart out and understand that, yes, there is somebody who's there to listen to them. And we don't have to agree with them, whatever they're saying, but at least we fully give them assurance that we have tried to understand their perspective 100%. So that can cause a little more bonding between two people, that yes, we have heard their perspective, but we can then ask different questions rather than sharing our perspective. We can ask questions in a way that shows that we might have a different perspective. Because when we ask questions, have you thought about something else they haven't considered? Then we are not saying that something else is our perspective. We are just asking the question, have they considered that? And some of the times they may have missed it. And so it's not necessarily saying out loud our perspective right off the bat. It's not like spilling the beans, but we can slowly hold their hand, first meet them where they are, understand them fully, and then slowly hold their hand by asking questions. And if they are interested and they in that conversation, then we will know that yes, they are getting it. They are trying to answer the question. Oh, I missed that. And then they might ask us for what we think. But if they are not interested in answering those questions, then we know this is not the right time. We shouldn't force it. This is not the right time. And we should probably give them little time and space if they are not continuing the conversation beyond their perspective.
So it's not like adding fire or fire to the fuel when we're just or like just keeping quiet when we see the other's perspective.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, that's a nice way to put it. Not add fuel to the fire, because they may not be ready for our perspective.
Yeah.
Right? And we shouldn't force it. It will come. We can sincerely pray and think that they can hear us a little more, but slowly. But if they are not, then we shouldn't force it, is my thought.
Okay, thank you so much, Prabhu. That helps. Hari Bol. Hare Krishna.
Prabhuji, this answer is like straight to that point. Most probably, I did not ask my question properly. I did not phrase it properly, but this is a wonderful answer, Prabhuji. Thank you. Thank you so much. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Thank you.
Thank you for the engagement.
Yep. Anybody else? We have a few more minutes. Very nice answer and question, actually. How do I see? Thank you, Prabhu. I think building a relationship before even thinking of perspective is also helpful. You cannot just tell somebody or ask somebody unless you have a relationship.
But yeah, I have a very great relationship with this person, and that's why I was saying, like, just to help. And I know the nature of the person very well, and it's very hard. I think this is my fault, that it's very hard for me to just keep quiet 10 times and then 11 times I'll just, my nature is such that I want to just help them get out of the dreadiness and the what do you call this? Like, I'll say, yes, I agree. And then I'll start giving my opinion and perspective, just so that they're not in that sorrowful mood or anger or emotional mood that they have so high in themselves. But yeah, I think I do need to learn where I just need to, even though this relationship is very great, I should just not feel that I have to say my perspective. That is what I have to learn. So thank you so much for your great answer, Prabhuji.
Thank you for asking that question. It helps me remind as well.
Okay. Any other points, comments, questions to Prabhu? Okay. Prabhu, I have a question. If
yes, Prabhu.
It is okay with you. So I was looking at the point number 3. Since we are serving all the time, why not serve Krishna? And I was contemplating that everything is Krishna. Bhatta sarvam pravartate, right? Whatever comes, whatever we see, whatever we hear, absolutely everything is Krishna. It's coming from Krishna, energy of Krishna. So what's the difference in serving? I don't see that difference. And when I see the third point, yes, we are serving Krishna in one way or the other. What is the significance of the last statement? Why not serve Krishna? So are we not serving Krishna? So I was thinking if you can throw some light on that, that will be really helpful to me.
Yes, Prabhuji, thank you for asking that question. You're made a great point that everything is Krishna, everything is coming from Krishna. Krishna is in everyone's heart. So the difference here is, Prabhuji, is when we are serving, do we have the consciousness that everyone else, whether it's family, friends, we are serving, they are a part, and Krishna is sitting in their heart, that they are coming from Krishna. So we have that consciousness when you are serving. And then also sometimes contemplating and asking the question, is there a better way? What I'm serving is fine, but is there a better way that will please Krishna even more? And for that, we can definitely turn to scriptures and Srimad Bhagavatam, and we have guiding principles. So the one difference is one of consciousness and remembrance. So we may be doing the service, I can continue to work at my workplace, but then do I have the consciousness and remembrance of Krishna when I'm doing that? So this question was more in a situation where we are serving all the time, or everybody, even devotees, non-devotees, we're serving all the time. And it was more to distinguish initially that those who are serving all the time and they don't have God consciousness, this point is meant to bring God consciousness in them, that actually we can serve by keeping Krishna in the center, rather than keeping ourselves in the center or keeping somebody else in the center. We can still serve them, but the service is keeping Krishna in the center. So it's more of a consciousness point from my perspective, Prabhuji, that that are we serving in that spirit that Krishna is in the center. Krishna is the source of everything, and we are just the instruments. And how can we be better instruments? So asking those questions internally is the difference versus not even asking those questions.
Thank you. Makes sense. Appreciate that.
Prabhuji, if there is anything to add, or if I didn't answer the question, please let me know.
No, nothing like that, Prabhuji. I was just curious, what's the difference, serving all the time? Are we not serving? You pointed out clearly that do we have that consciousness? So even when we are doing a spiritual activity, if we don't have that consciousness, obviously we're not serving Krishna in that sense. So you're on point. Thank you, Prabhuji.
Thank you for asking that question, Prabhuji.
Okay. We are 3 minutes over, but if anybody else wants to have a question, comment, please do so. We'll just give another 10-15 seconds and then we can wrap it up. Okay. No questions. Prabhu, thank you so much for your wisdom and chapter 1 Bhagavad Gita. So it says starting for 18 weeks of marathon of Bhagavad Gita sessions. So thank you for kicking off. Really appreciate your time giving to our Iskcon Naperville congregation. On behalf of our temple president and His Divine Grace Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada, we are very grateful to you for your time. And thank you all the devotees who ever joined on this call. And today we do not have any announcement for Sunday feast. So we're going to close the call today, and we'll meet you all next Sunday. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Vanchakalapurusya cha kripa sindhubhya eva cha patitanam bhavanebhyo vaishnavaya.